Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo. Hello, and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. So in this episode, you'll actually notice that Katie and I get started right away. I didn't even get to introduce the podcast. The conversation was just so great. So I'm so excited for you all to check it out. Katie Manning, as we all know in the Cleft community, is doing a 100 Cleft Portrait Exhibit. And there are tickets available. Of course, you can go live and in person, but she does have a virtual ticket option as well. So we're really, really excited. In this conversation, we talk about the upcoming exhibit, of course, cleft representation. We talk about her own journey in cleft and also trauma coaching, which is really insightful. I'm so excited for you all to listen to this episode. Enjoy. What happens when you become a teenager and you're talking about this topic and you're online everywhere and you're like, you've shared all these photos and you've done all the things. It's like,
yeah, it is a thing. And I'll tell you what's made it drawn attention to me. It's drawn my attention to it even more is the exhibition because instantaneously I'm like, I want to share these beautiful faces with the world, but I don't have cleft. So I don't have the inside line about how that might feel, somebody seeing my face pre-surgery. So that was something which really was something that I have done as much as I possibly can to be as respectful and as understanding as I possibly can with that, without having cleft. It's a conversation that I've had with Ella. It's a conversation I had with Will, my husband, who also was born with cleft. And interestingly, both of them had completely opposing views about the portrait project with regards to how they would feel about it if they were in it. Yeah, so that's actually one of the reasons why, because initially when I did it, I was like, I want to make a book, I want to have it universally available, I want to scream from the rooftops and celebrate these beautiful faces. And then after talking with both Ella and Will and really reflecting on it from other people who also have cleft, other women who also have cleft, I thought, no, I'm not going to make a book because it feels like if we have an exhibition and it's like all the families, lots of the families who are in it are coming, that feels more contained and mutually respectful of space than if I then create something which is in the world forever and being printed potentially forever, because each family has their portrait at home, and obviously we've had documentation and they've signed to say that they're happy for their child to be in it, but that's not their child's voice, and none of us ever know whatever form of parenting journey we're on how our children are going to grow, who they're going to be, how they're going to feel about themselves, what they're going to be comfortable sharing, how they're going to become who it is they're going to be in the world, right? And I reckon we don't know this right at the beginning because the parental ego is so strong and we feel really, oh, my kid, I mean, I've had so many situations where I thought my kid wouldn't do that. My kid won't do that.
I get chills thinking about that because everything, I mean, so many points that you're making about this, it's like that you have a sense of entitlement as a parent, right? Even you saying that, part of me as a mom is battling that. Like you just saying like, oh, we are in a sense possessive. And I'm like, yeah, I am, she's mine, you know, like that rises up in me.
Of course. And that's really that's totally fine. Like something that is, I think, not said enough is all of that. Like it's totally fine if that rises up in you. So it flipping should, and it's totally fine if somebody says something and you're like, and you find yourself in a place of judgment or these places aren't places that we would necessarily quote unquote want to be or want to be feeling or thinking or even admitting to ourselves. But I feel like that's the responsibility that we have when we bring another child, bring another life into the world, that we don't realise at the time, because if any of us realise the magnitude of what that actually means, we probably would think twice. So, so, you know, like, I love having babies. I absolutely loved having my babies. I loved growing them. I loved birthing them. I'm one of those weirdos that just, not a weirdo, but I just love babies. Always have, always would have probably had more, actually. But they grow up, and that sounds so obvious. And of course it is obvious on a level, but I don't think that we, right at the beginning, when they're little, quite comprehend that this is a whole new person in their own right that I was gifted, but that doesn't belong to me. And it doesn't belong to me. And I think that I'm not even anywhere near through my journey. Of course, I'm not like, you're always a mum, right? But I think because I'm at the stage where I am with three teenagers, three very, very different teenagers, but they will push back and they will show you who they are. And it's hard, actually, in the teenage years, because that's really strong, as it quite rightly needs to be developmentally, because they need to be moving away. They need to be making their own way in the world and their own decisions and what they're comfortable with and who they are. And, you know, it's not going to be the same as yours. Their morals, their guidance, like who they are, is not necessarily going to be the same as yours. And it might not be, dare I say it, what you envisaged it would be. And then we get really challenged, and it's really, and I suppose that's the invitation, like, and I think that's the invitation of Cleft. I've always felt that Cleft, right from the start, is like parenting on steroids, because you kind of go through it, and you go through so many emotions so quickly that many of us, when we know I've got two other children and they don't have Cleft, it's still a really expansive, challenging ride, but it's not quite as hardcore if you don't have Cleft in the picture. For me.
Yeah.
Everybody's experience is different, but that's mine.
Hi, I am so sorry to interrupt the show, but I just want to tell you about today's sponsor. Today's show sponsor is Sienna Dawn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Dawn Media is more than just a marketing agency. They are your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do: create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. Visit siennadawnmedia.com. And we're talking a little bit about the exhibit that you have coming up. And I know that you've been working on this for a while now. I mean, it's a pretty big event. And so you talked about your husband and your daughter. Now, when you first started, like, did you not realize that they may have opinions about what you were doing? And then did that like evolve over time? Just seeing the work that you've been doing, like on their end and your end?
Yeah, I think it's like the creation of the project, of the event, of the collection of 100 portraits. The story about how that came to be is something separate from how it's evolved. But the story of how it came to be is linked, actually, because it came to be because I felt like Cleft needed to be represented in a positive, beautiful way. I felt like in my own personal experience of Cleft, of raising a child with Cleft, being married to a man with a Cleft, all the advertisements that I might see on television that are designed for us to donate money, which is needed and important and so valuable, have a certain energy around them. And I didn't want that. I feel like I understand why that's there. Of course I do. But I felt like there is space here which is not being filled right now. There are a few spaces actually which are not being filled right now. One was all around the trauma of the journey, and one was all around our universal language of creativity and how we are all, in essence, personification, if you like, of the ultimate creation, and that nature doesn't make mistakes, and that we need to celebrate the diversity of our faces. And art is, drawing and being an artist is something that I was an art teacher for like 25 years. I still dip in and out of it. I did a lot of art teaching online during COVID, and I was forging my way, if you like, with my own creative work, and just really wanted to celebrate these faces. And at every point in time, I asked Ella, if you are not comfortable with me doing this, I will not do it. Because she comes first and foremost, and I don't have Cleft. And I think we have to be very conscious about that, because I think it's really important, an important part of it for us mums who don't have that as a lived experience. So, and she never said she didn't want me to do it. She said, you can't draw me, but I'm okay for you to do it. Like, I think this is really, it was something that she didn't necessarily want to look at all of them either initially. But what's interesting, and this is interesting, is that she asked me not very long ago if she could be a part of the project. So she came and asked if she could be a part of it. So now her portrait is a part of the project. So for me, I think that that's huge, because there's a part of her somewhere there that maybe perhaps this project is sort of kind of healing for all of us that are on this journey. I mean, from my own point of view, I cried a lot when I made those pieces. Not all of them, and it's got less as I've made more. But when I first started, God, some of them used to really get me, because you can feel the energy, and you can feel someone's journey and someone's spirit, almost someone's soul through their eyes especially. And I think that there's something quite divine and spectacular about children born with cleft in their eyes. You can't deny it. Like, it's too coincidental. There's too many of them with these massive eyes that are just like looking at you. You're like, okay, I see you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It is so true. Yeah, no, that was like my exact question. Like, what a breakthrough moment, I feel like, for you when she says like, hey, I want to be a part of this. Like, I guess, I don't know. Like, I feel like I would have cried or said, of course, sure, but you don't want to be too emotional. You don't want to be too happy, because she knows she's still a teenager and that could put her off too. So you mentioned your husband they have differing opinions. Are you okay sharing what your husband's opinion is on everything that you're doing, or
Yes,
or just his opinion on cleft in general? I had someone recently, her name is Tiffany Tyler, and maybe your husband has a little bit of this lived experience as well. She shared that it is different being a mother and versus being a patient, and you have your lived experience, but then you also look at your child who has their experience, and having both is just very different. It's you don't look at yourself the same as the way that you look at your child having it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's also true, because just because some of us walk the same path doesn't mean that it impacts us in the same way, does it? But no, so for Will, well, number one, he's a boy, and Ella is female, and I think there's differences and different societal expectations around who we are and our gender, and I don't think he had as much of he feels to me and through our conversations, he met it and he threw himself into sport, and he found a strength in sport, and he feels that really helped him in the darker times when he was questioning himself a little bit, as you do when you're growing up anyway, cleft aside. And he felt he left home, he was traveling in France at 16, so he was pretty independent and wanted to find himself and go and do his own thing. And Ella's journey in life has been very, very different from that. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Because we might unconsciously draw comparison, but there really is no point because we're all so different and we all respond so differently. And like I said, right, a minute ago, we have no idea how our kids are going to evolve and who they're going to be and how they're going to manage scenarios and situations. So it really is about mastering, for me, the essence of being present, like being really, really present, like now in the moment, like what's happening, what's not, like what's the story? What's the story I'm telling myself? When am I living in the past? Where am I living in the future? Because we live in the future a lot as mums with cleft children. And bringing ourselves back into the here, the now. It takes courage and bravery to do that, but I think that's the invitation of having a child with cleft for me.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of like strength and pulling from that, your Instagram name is Cleft Warrior Woman.
I recently changed it. I'll tell you why in a minute.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I was going to ask, like, why it has so much power behind it.
Yeah, it does, and it might get changed back. But, you know, the thing with Instagram, we can kind of like, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this. And I'm definitely in a place of growth right now. Like, there's no doubt about it. So from the start of this project, I would say, I'm going to do 100 portraits, and when I told Will that, he just looked at me like I was a mad woman. I'm like, actually, I am. And it doesn't matter how long it takes me. I don't care. I'm going to make 100 because that's what I want to do. So Cleft Warrior Woman, I suppose I felt I had so much, should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? But so much about what I'm doing and what I'm saying takes courage and bravery to actually put it out there and say it, you know. And I thought, well, actually, that is a bit like a warrior, to be fair. But the actual statement, it's not just about me. I feel it's not even about me. It's about the journey. It's about the becoming that is, you know, being in the community. And it's for the mums. It's for the people with cleft. It's for all of us. It's not. There's a post in Instagram when I changed it where I spoke about, you know, what this actually is and why I'm changing it, and why I'm changing it to this. And there is power, and it's interesting because you're the second person. I went and met a cleft team in hospital last week, and they were like, there's so much power in that. Like, we love that. We love that. So yeah, maybe that's the universe saying to me, Kate, don't change it. Keep it as it
is. I'll have to go look at what it is now. I think I would have noticed. It's your name. Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe that's why I didn't know. I thought maybe Instagram did something.
But I changed it because my work is, a lot of my trauma work now is about, I'm working with people who are not in the cleft community. So I'm going into schools and I'm talking to different kinds of people on different kinds of journeys. And I felt that if you were on a different journey and maybe you were a teacher and you landed on my page, you'd be like, no, this one's not for me because it's really so it might get changed back, I don't know, we'll see. But yes, everything feels like it's really growing now.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that with all of the work that you've been doing. And you mentioned the trauma work that you are doing as well as an ICF and CPD accredited trauma coach. I've also actually recorded with some of the people that you have worked with. Actually, one person that you have worked with that no one else has disclosed with me. But Stacy, she has shared about the work that you all have been doing and how beneficial the work has been for her. So can you describe, like, what is it? Like, what's the, I don't want to say magic because I don't want to make it sound diminishing or anything, but like this thing that you're working on, this powerful thing that people are getting connected to and healing from.
Yeah, it's all come from my own personal journey. It's all come from me walking the path and me not knowing that what I was facing and what my child was facing was trauma, and not understanding what that word actually means and not understanding how that impacts your body everything inside of it, everything outside of it. So it came about through my own journey, like came about through a wonderful art job that I got, where I was commissioned to create a deck of cards, the sort of affirmation cards and things that you can have. This was a deck of cards which was designed to support anybody who would just literally walking off the street, be struggling in life in some way, shape or form, and they could pick up this deck of cards and they would be able to map their nervous system and understand what parts might be showing up for them. It was an integration of polyvagal theory, which is a theory by Stephen Porges, and internal family systems, which is a parts-based model to work through trauma. And I was commissioned to create this deck and design these cards. There were like 60 or 70 of them. And when I was doing the artwork for these cards, I was getting drop-in after drop-in of insight of my own situation unfolding in our home with my child who was born with cleft.
Had you been exposed to that before?
No.
At all? Or you kind of learned this from doing that project?
Yeah. So that was my first. So as I was doing the artwork, because the creative process, making art, dance, music, I don't care what it is that you do, when you get into that kind of flow, you're in a higher connected space where there's more space for insight to come in. Like, it's like the creative flow, like everybody, you talk about that energy. It doesn't matter actually what it is. If you're doing something that you love, you feel expanded and you feel, joyful and you feel open. And that's when insight gets to drop in. We're creating the space to get the messages or the insight that previously there was too much noise going on. So it's unable for it to drop in, through our energy field and into our body, into our awareness, into our consciousness, whatever you want to call it. That's the thing that happens. So as I was creating these cards, and this was at a particularly hugely challenging time when I didn't know what we were facing, and even though we had sought support from many specialist cleft psychologists, we'd seen 3, and it was nobody was actually saying what was actually happening, and it was all confusing, and it was me feel I was a rubbish mum. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have the skill set. I didn't know. Yeah, I felt rubbish. I felt like I couldn't help my kid. Like, there's no worse feeling in the world than seeing your child really suffering and you don't know what to do. You literally don't know what to do. And more than that, you actually think, oh my God, when is this, how is this going to unfold? It's really scary. So when I was creating, and this was just a coincidence that came along, when I was creating this deck and designing this deck, I was like, oh my God, that's what's happening in our house. Oh my God, that's what's happening to me. Oh my God, that's what's happening to her. Oh my God. And then it was almost like this door opened, and the lady who commissioned all that work is a trauma coach, and she specializes in narcissistic abuse. And because I've been working closely with her on this project, I shared with her what was going on. And I said, I want to do what you're doing for the women who are being, in these situations, or for anyone who's in these situations. I want to do what you're doing, but I want to do it for the cleft community, because no one is talking about this. No one is talking about this stuff. And if somebody had been talking about this stuff and sharing about this stuff when I got LS cleft diagnosis, we would not be here now. Right? I need to do this because I feel like I've got a responsibility to share absolutely everything I possibly can with as many people who will willingly listen to me and who are ready to listen, because that's the other thing. And, that's something that we learn when you understand and unpack stuff, is not all of us are ready to do the work that it takes to really take radical responsibility for how it is you're showing up as a parent and how it is you're showing up in your family dynamic. Because it's scary. because it's unknown, because we're so conditioned, but we don't know that we're really conditioned, but most of us really are, myself included. Like, right, I'm not, never at any point in time am I standing on a tall hill or whatever going, oh, are you not doing that? Like, we're all in this together, big time. And I just feel like the reason I had to share it, Laura, is because when I approached this lady and I said, I want to do this for the cleft community, but there's no way I can do her trainings. They were so much money. She gave me part of her trainings, like she gifted me. She gave me a scholarship or whatever to start my journey. And then I learned skills, and then I went through the process myself, and it's just grown from there. Like, it's just expanded from there within her world and further and beyond. And now I actually work with people's bodies physically, like I work in energy fields and with people's bodies. And so it's a combination of work that I do, working with the front part of our brain, because we need to sometimes understand what it is we're going to do, especially if we are very much in a trauma response. And I think so many people are walking around in activated states that they don't even know. They don't know that that's what's going on, you know. And when I embodied and started this path, I started to see the things that were terrifying me started to stop, and I started to not be frightened, and I showed up differently. I showed up. It was not easy. It never is easy, and it's always evolving. It's always changing. But the things that I learned changed everything. And the minute I saw that, and it doesn't mean to say that it's a plaster. It doesn't fix. Like, we're not into fixing. We're into like taking full responsibility, owning our part in our reality, and understanding that it's not anybody's fault. But once you know, I want to change this, then it becomes your responsibility. But you have to go steady, and you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to work at the speed with which your nervous system is capable of working, because otherwise it has completely the opposite effect, you know? So what the work I do is very much about, everybody has their own incredible life force running through their body. Every single person on the planet does. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Like I said, the ultimate creation, right? There's something really powerful inside every single human. What happens is, because of the world we live in, because it's so noisy, because there's so much generational trauma as well, many of the things that we experience aren't even ours. They were gifted to us. Not consciously, because who would do that? But that's what happens. All right. Thanks for that. Love it. But once you become aware of it, then it's your responsibility, you know. And I think with cleft, because there is an initial physiological trauma response when you get a cleft diagnosis, either when you get it or when you have your baby and, you know, maybe it was undiagnosed, there's a trauma response. I don't believe anything else. And the minute that happens, there's a disconnect. And because we're mums, we push it down and we crack on and we put everybody else first. And we're like, no, I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine. And we push and we push and we push and we push, you know, to meet all these expectations, our own as well. And at some point, it's going to be something that we all have to go, okay, right? Something's not working, or something feels off, or something I feel disconnected, like whatever it is. And you know what? It doesn't happen to everybody, but because we're all so unique. And trauma is like a fingerprint. Like the way it impacts everybody is so different. Like cleft is like a fingerprint, you know. But that gets to be something quite. I want to say beautiful, but it might not feel like that at the time. But I want to say that because that's it. Everything that happens is happening for us to step into who it is we came here to be. And to be living with more freedom and liberation and trust and hope, and and that's so it's about igniting or remembering as women who the hell we are. And the Cleft warrior woman, that's what she's about, right? She's like, nah, I'm going to do something. I know who I am. I'm going to stand in who I am. I'm going to do the work and be so damn connected to myself that nothing will make me feel less than or make me not use my voice, because so many of our voices have been, shushed or quietened. That's not a word. I do love making up a word, so I just
maybe silence or
silence. Yeah.
In thinking about that, I have a kind of a two-part question. I guess it's more like a layered question. You mentioned working like with the body, right? And that's something that's like you've kind of added on to the work that you're doing. The first question is like, what does that actually like look like? And then the second question is like, I'll say this, having these conversations with moms in the beginning, it was like, okay, I'll just like have these conversations. Now I'm like 50 conversations in and I'm starting to feel the weight of it. Like, there are days that I leave the conversations crying, or it's just so heavy, and I just didn't take into account when I started this that like, hey, your own mental health and like trauma and the things that you have gone through are going to sometimes be amplified in this. I didn't really realize that, or they're going to be like, it's going to be hard some days. And so I can only imagine that also happens to you at times, like just in thinking about all of this energy that you have around you and the things that may happen within you from kind of like taking on what other people are experiencing. Would you say that is something that you not struggle with, but something that happens to you as well?
It's so interesting you say this to me. Shall I tell you why? Because when I was a teacher, I still am, like, let's be honest about it, I don't think that ever leaves your body. But before all this work, I was a secondary school teacher in a comprehensive school. We've taught everywhere. We've taught overseas in all sorts of places. But like what you've just said, I would, because I was art as well, creativity always draws in lots of conversations of people are struggling, or, the kids would always come into my room at lunchtime and I'd always get all the chat. And I had cereal bars in my bag and I would like, I'm quite a strong mothering person, that's just who I kind of am. And I would carry home more of, the dynamics from various children's families, or how they were, or what was going on for them, and schools are trauma hothouses, I now know. Because of course you've got such a diverse group of people in such a small space, right? You're going to have, we've all got backpacks of stuff that we're lugging around literally every flipping day. So you put a load of people who are completely, in a space together, there's going to be a lot. And through my life, I've had lots of situations where I have felt and a direct impact or a direct energy transfer from somebody else. Some of them, those stories are really weird, which we haven't got time to go into, but some of them are very strange situations that I was in or experienced. Then others are just, like you said, you walk away and the magnitude of the conversation or the situation that you've just experienced, you kind of just do it at the time and then you walk away from it and you're like, oh my gosh. And it impacts you. So that, used to happen. And then I discovered energy work, and I became Reiki practitioner, and I did some more energy modalities, and I started to understand why that was actually happening and what was actually happening in those moments. And then And basically, we're all interconnected all the time. I don't know if you saw something that I posted the other day, and Ashley from Cleft Love IG, she wrote underneath it, "Are you in my head?" No, not in your head. But we're all interconnected all the time. The conditioning separates us or gives us the illusion that there's separation. There is no separation. We're all connected. How much of that, people are prepared to get on board with, or how comfortable they are getting on board with, that's fine. Everybody is able to meet those kinds of conversations as and where and how they are, fine. But nobody can deny that if you walk into a room and somebody's in that room who maybe you might have actually had a disagreement with, or it might be some family history or anything. Nobody can deny that you feel energy. Mm-hmm. We all don't. Nobody questions flipping Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but we're all questioning this energetic field, which we have, and it's science. The Heart Math Institute, you can look up online, your frequency is measured. I don't even know how far away it is, but I'll tell you that I know that your frequency of your heart can be felt further away than the frequency of your brain. So we are heart-led beings. But the way that we kind of live and the life experience that we have, especially when we're young, mostly when you're young, even in utero, right? It can signal, oh my God, this isn't safe, or oh, this doesn't feel good, or we get, external factors like surgery or pre-surgical intervention, especially when we're pre-verbal. It impacts the physiology of the body, and the body contracts, Of course it does. Why would it not? That's not the problem, though. What the issue is that those cycles, those traumatic cycles that we're in, they don't finish in real time. Because we push it down, because we move on, because we be strong, because there's an element of shame in truly saying how crap you sometimes feel. Can't do that. And it's that self-acknowledgement, it's giving yourself permission to say, this feels really hard right now, and I'm not sure why, but it does. So I'm just going to either, however it is we come at it, I'm not going to take this into a coaching session, but however it is that works for the individual person to hold space for themselves and integrate their experiences for themselves. The more work you do like that, the less you feel. And actually you feel it, and you feel it with great empathy, but it doesn't become yours. You don't embody it, right? It's the difference. There's a degree of separation. So you can feel it. You can work really deeply with people. I work really deeply with people now, much more deeply than I did when I was in the classroom, however many years ago. I would come home and just be like, I need to take all these kids home with me and look after them because it's just not okay. I don't have that anymore. And that's why I think, because when I have a post in me that hasn't come out yet, but I've had a really hard 2 or 3 weeks for various reasons, really challenging things which have come back around, and I've let myself feel the things, and I've done the things that I know support me. It's the resistance to the feelings which creates the disconnect and the trauma. The feeling is everything we're meant to have. We're meant to have this rich, diverse, expressive experience, Like Giselle, right? She'll tell you what she wants and what she doesn't want. And she'll just throw a complete hissy fit if something's going off and she's like, what are you doing? We become so sort of contained, and yes, of course, there's an element of, well, we can't all go around chucking ourselves on the supermarket floor as adults because that would be weird. But self-expression, creativity, the essence of being human, the mess of being human, we're all the same. And so my answer to that question is, the more we integrate and meet ourselves and our own trauma, the strength of our energetic frequency and self-connection, self-belief, self-connection, sense of self, sense of who we are without the conditioning and the expectation of other people, becomes so authentic and aligned that you can have empathy and you can feel and you can see and you can have conversations, but you don't embody it.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and I thank you for that, because it's certainly something that I've found that I've had to like work on if I wanted to continue to do this, because I did go through like a season where I'm like, oh my goodness, like, am I going to be able to do this? Because this is like a lot to bear. But you talked a little bit about suffering, right, along your journey, and as well as Ella along her journey. Do you think that kind of has evolved over time? Like, I guess in the beginning when you first found out about her diagnosis, maybe you were doing more of the suffering, right? Versus Ella. But now that she has gotten older and she's kind of had this lived experience and these surgeries and these things, now it's you almost don't own that anymore. It's like it's hers to own. In some ways. And I guess when you received her diagnosis, what was your feeling about it, or what was that like to get that?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. It is Ella's journey, and it is Ella's journey to own, and it is Ella's journey to experience. But one of the biggest things that I have learned for myself personally is, because I hadn't met my own experiences in my life before she came along and when she came along, and I hadn't met that. If we haven't met our own, we cannot hold space for our children when they go through their own. Because I think you'll understand it when I say to you, there are some people in life you'll tell something to just because you want to be heard, right? Just because you need to be seen and you need to be heard. And they'll go, oh God, yeah, I remember when that happened to me and this happened to me. And no judgment, like we all did it. I do it. I've done it. But in that space and time, there's the proof there that we will make it about ourselves, because that's what humanity does, unless we are consciously integrating our lived experiences for ourselves, right? And so I think that that's a really important thing to say. I was absolutely devastated when I got my cleft diagnosis. I took to my bed for about a week and bawled my eyes out for about a week and didn't know what was up and what was down. And it was weird because we had had a scan and they had said that there was no cleft, because obviously they were looking for it. So when they then scanned again and said there was cleft, it was like hearing it for the first time without expecting it, because I kind of already thought it wasn't cleft. I don't know how they missed that, her cleft, God love her, but they did.
Is she your first child?
She was my first child, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, she was my first child, and I grieved like so much for about a week, and then it was, like it is for all of us. It's like, right, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to go? All the things, because at the time we lived overseas, and the conversation had to be had about whether we were going to come home or whether we were going to stay where we were, and all the things. And it became very much about her and what was going to happen when she was born, and the standard chat that happens at that time.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. I think given that your husband was cleft affected, sometimes I feel like, okay, well maybe that would like make it easier, at least, because I guess not that there's you think about it, right, instead of being completely shocked.
Yeah.
But I think that in your case as well, I would have be having the original scan saying no.
Yeah.
And then, life has a way of lifing, and it's like, nope, never mind. We we take it back. Like she actually does, and then having to deal with that, like kind of like the rug being pulled under you, pulled from under you. Like that's, yeah. I can't imagine that was a big struggle. But did your husband have any? I guess I'm assuming he was a first-time parent as well. So
Yeah,
did he have any wise words or?
No,
Yeah.
he just felt incredibly guilty. He just felt so guilty. He was sad and he felt guilty. And this is so interesting as well. When we were going through hospitals, deciding, where we were going to go and what we were going to do, it triggered his trauma, it triggered his experiences, and that was really hard because I'd never seen him upset like that before.
I can imagine.
But yeah, you just navigate it at the time. This is why I'm like, I have to talk about what I talk about, because I have a dream. I had a dream to do the 100. I also have another dream, which is to create a trauma-informed cleft diagnosis protocol and to train people who scan. Because I firmly believe, like I've already said, that we all have this powerful life force running through us, and there's nothing more powerful than a woman growing a baby. It's just the most magnificent thing ever, if you think about that. Oh, it just makes me get goosebumps. It's just so divine. And if we give that mother the support right there, right then, and I'm not talking about necessarily even talking, I'm talking about maybe it's about language, it's about body language, it's about even just movement. Everything always comes back down to safety. And when you have that, you're not safe. You're not safe, your kid's not safe, what the hell's going to happen? Like, total, right. Your nervous system is straight away. So imagine how powerful it would be to then be able to experience someone saying, I got this, let's talk about it like this. How does that feel? How do you feel about that? How does that feel in your body? Put your hands on your tummy. I mean, I'm really skimming over this and doing a really wizzy, but you have to go as fast as somebody's nervous system can manage, totally. Otherwise, there's no point, and we re-traumatize ourselves, etc. But there's a real gap there for the experiences that mums get as soon as they get that cleft diagnosis. And that, I believe, is where the journey starts. So, I know that people are doing it in pockets around the world, but it really massive. And not just for us cleft mums, but for every mum who has, a scan where they go quiet and then they get someone else in the room and then you get siphoned off to a different room and you don't get on. It's literally disconnection after disconnection after disconnection after disconnection. Then you go home and you Google, and then you're like, oh my God. And then and I know we have support networks, but sometimes the support networks are divine, amazing, incredible spaces full of beautiful, beautiful people. But some people, and there's probably more than we realise, don't want to be in those spaces because they are so like, and that was me. Like when I tell you, Laura, that I couldn't talk about cleft and the journey and the diagnosis and Ella really like this, probably until about maybe 4 years ago, something like that, without crying, because it was still in my body. Because when we cry, the body's trying to regulate itself, so it's a sure sign that we're dysregulated when we cry. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's to be embraced, of course it is. But all of that I'd carried with me for 12 years, more, maybe. And I just got on with it because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we're expected to do. I mean, there's no grace. But you're so right. And I had never thought about this, but I know that there's always been this sort of like gap where I see a lot of women, they get their diagnosis and they're like, well, we don't want to see you until the baby gets here because it's not you, it's the baby that we want to see it, right? We want to see the anatomy so we can get to work. But this idea that they should have some type of intervention from the time that they are diagnosed until, and throughout the whole journey, but just that gap where it is that, they get their diagnosis and then the baby arrives. You're so right about that.
Women need so much support during that time, because I don't know the facts and figures, but I bet my life on the undeniable link between diagnosis of any kind and birth trauma. Like, I bet my life on it. Because your body's already gone into like severe trauma response. That is not, therefore, a body which is able to do the job that we're here to do, ultimately, evolutionary terms, to give birth, to go through that process of birthing a child. And that's huge, that's massive. But how can that happen, how nature intended it to happen, if you're in those elevated levels of stress? My birth experience with that was really challenging. So much so that after her, when I was subsequently pregnant, I learned so much more about what happens to the body when it's pregnant. How the body communicates how the baby communicates when it's ready to be born, how it's a dance between the baby and the mother, and the body of the baby and the mother, and how we co-regulate even when in utero, like all these beautiful things. And I did hypnobirthing, and I was so determined that no one was going to rob me of that wasn't going to be robbed from me again. And I think that there's not enough love, care, compassion, space holding. Women aren't taught how to regulate their nervous systems. They're not told that's even a thing. Like, just sort of see you later when the baby comes. And if you imagine, like, if you had a mum who kind of knew how to travel those last couple of months with her baby, understanding that she might not know what's going to happen, but she was connected to and able to stay in her power, that would just completely change everything. It would.
Yeah, I love that. You did mention something about support groups. Are these individual like coaching sessions, or do you run support groups through the work that you're doing?
So I have various things that I'm doing right now at this moment in time. How people can, like, what I do is I have a membership where we meet once a month, and which Stacey's a part of, and I have coaching. So I do coaching. I do one-to-one coaching, either online or in person. And then I have 2 programs which by December, so hold me to this, Laura. 2 programs which need to be in the world. One has already been in the world, and it was really successful. But then, as you so beautifully put it earlier, life started lifing. And I ran it twice, and I didn't run it again because life was lifing, and I was doing 100 portraits because that's what you do. And so there's 2, and Stacey was a part of that as well. She was part of the first cohort that went through, basically guiding other people through exactly what I have learned and what has been the most powerful learning. I reckon the most powerful learning of my life. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Well, that was going to be the last question, is what has your journey taught you about life, the work that you're doing, and your journey as a mother, and what has it all taught you?
It's taught me how important it is to be brave when you feel different. It's taught me so much. I think I've shared quite a lot about what it's taught me on already, but God, if I had to, I find that very difficult to find like one thing that it's taught me.
No, for sure.
I think it's taught me that if we arrive in this world with a difference, then we're here to do something pretty extraordinary. We're here to challenge the status quo. We're here to say, hey, like, here I am. And we kind of, Cleft, I really feel, is an invitation to step into who it is that we're meant to be. And even if we're not the ones with the cleft, but we're the ones who love the person with the cleft, you know, worrying is like praying for your worst fears come true, literally. So I feel like the children that we have are, well, every child that arrives on this earth is a gift and our greatest teacher. Of course they are, like, that goes without saying. But when you have the gift of a child born with cleft, man, you better strap in for the ride, because there is nothing like it.
You said there is no greater teacher.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is, if as a mum you feel you know, that things are hard and that things are challenging, the invitation there is to say, okay, what part am I playing in this? Because we're always playing a part, and we get to decide, once you understand you're playing a part in it, you get to decide then what part you actually really, really want to play and how you go about doing that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't even know if that makes sense, but that just came out, so we'll go with that.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And I appreciate everything that you've shared. I think that it is typically towards the end of, you know, the episode, we ask that question, but so many times it's like, you know, I've shared a lot of this throughout, you know, the conversation. So sometimes it's just like a reshare, kind of like a summary of all of the things. But I do appreciate you being on, and I'm so excited. I saw that the virtual tickets for the 100 Portraits collection have been released online. So this podcast is global. So hopefully people will be able to get tickets online if they're not able to attend in person. And so we'll actually put that link in the show notes, and we'll certainly put it on, you know, on Instagram and all the things whenever we release this episode.
Amazing.
Yeah, I anything that I can do to support this community, to uplift this community, to share more voices, faces, is, you know, something that my heart is in just as well as yours. So I do just thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. Just in this conversation alone, I've learned so much about my own personal journey that I don't tend to, I guess, think about. I try not to think about when I have these conversations, because I feel like it's not about me, you know, it's not about my journey anymore. I want to give people the platform to share theirs. And so, but I do thank you for that opportunity to be able to do that today.
You're so welcome. And I'm so glad we finally got the opportunity to do it.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much for listening to the Our Forever Smiles, Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little peace, reassurance, and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week. Hey, everyone. It's Laura here. I'm popping in today because I need your help. If Our Forever Smiles has ever helped you, if you've learned something new, felt less alone, or found hope through this podcast, then I'm asking you to help keep it going. Creating this podcast, sharing stories, and building a space where Cleft families feel seen and supported is something that I pour my heart into. But the truth is, I cannot do it alone. If we want to reach more families and provide even more resources, we need your support. So I thought of a creative way to do this. For just $2 a month, you can help ensure this podcast keeps going strong. For $5 a month, you'll unlock exclusive Moms in Real Life content, real unfiltered conversations about motherhood and career and everything in between. And then for $10 a month, you can get everything plus exclusive merch to show your support. If this podcast has helped you and you want to see it grow to help other families that are probably facing the very same challenges that you are facing right now, please consider supporting us today. Every dollar goes toward making a difference for Cleft families just like yours. And right now, we'll be using the funds to elevate the show for production. So we'll be able to add more video and just get new equipment. And as soon as this community is established and we're able to do more, we definitely plan to go beyond the scope of just this community. We want to be able to support scholarships for new craniofacial surgeons. We want to be able to support global surgeries and just really spread our efforts to continue to make an impact in our community. I just want to thank you in advance, and I'm just so grateful that you all are able to support me and support this community here. And it's definitely something that I'm really looking forward to. The link is in the show notes, and I just want to do a shameless plug here. The Moms in Real Life podcast is so cool, so candid, and yeah, it's definitely something that you'll want to check out. Thank you all again.